Hello, everyone. I'm John Evans in the WECT Digital Studio. We are awaiting a briefing by Governor Josh Stein from the Emergency Management Office in Raleigh to update the preparations for this winter storm we are expecting to hit this weekend. Let me just show you what I am looking at here. That's the slate that I am looking at to await the governor. As soon as I see him coming up on the stage in Raleigh, I'll go over there, pump up his audio, and we'll listen to what the governor has to say. We do want to tell you, though, that we have heard of some preparations being made. Columbus County is closing the government offices on Monday. Columbus County government offices are closed on Monday because of the impact of the winter storm. We've also heard from Bladen Community College and Southeastern Community College. Both are closed this weekend. So we know that there are steps being taken in some areas in preparation for the storm. We have a briefing by New Hanover County Emergency Management coming up this afternoon that we will also bring you here. Stream it live on WECT.com, our website, our news app, and our Facebook page, along with our YouTube channel. But again, we're going to hear from Gabe Ross following the governor's briefing this morning to give us an idea of the time frame and whether anything has changed. We had a briefing this morning, and our weather folks are saying going with the similar time frame as we had prior to today. But now we're getting ready to go to Raleigh to hear Governor Josh Stein and other leaders as they prepare North Carolina for the winter storm.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today as we share updates on another winter storm coming to North Carolina. Groundhog Day is just around the corner, and it's starting to feel a bit like Groundhog Week here in North Carolina since we were just up here last Wednesday. I'm joined by Director of Emergency Management, Will Ray, Secretary of Transportation, Daniel Johnson, Secretary of Public Safety, Jeff Smythe, Major General Todd Hunt of the North Carolina National Guard, and the Commander of the State Highway Patrol, Colonel Freddie Johnson. Jackie Matevier and Yasmin Polizzi are our Spanish language interpreters. Our American Sign Language interpreter is Mark Lindberg, and the other is Stephen Holland. If you were disappointed by how few snowflakes fell this past weekend, I have some good news for you. And if you're tired of winter weather, some bad news. This is going to be with us a little bit longer. Starting overnight and continuing through Sunday morning, we expect snowfall across most of the state. However, we don't anticipate ice storms that created the risk of widespread power outages last weekend. But still, we must be prepared. The snow is going to come with strong winds and bitterly cold temperatures. In many places, we don't expect to get above freezing until early next week. So whatever snow falls on Saturday is going to stick around for a while. In coastal North Carolina, especially the Outer Banks, strong tides and high winds could also cause flooding. Strong winds combined with snow can create whiteout conditions, making driving treacherous. We are prepared to respond to whatever the storm may bring. Yesterday, I declared a state of emergency across North Carolina. This will help us qualify for any federal assistance we may need. We've activated the State Emergency Response Team, a cross-agency group that includes the Department of Transportation, Department of Public Safety, North Carolina National Guard, State Highway Patrol, and our state's utilities. NCDOT crews have been working in shifts around the clock on de-icing operations to clear the roadways from what's left from the past weekend storm and anti-icing operations to prepare for the roads for the coming weather. I had the privilege of seeing a number of these workers yesterday at the NCDOT Westgate facility, also known as Brine Mountain, to thank them in person. These folks have been working 90, 100-hour weeks to keep us safe. We all owe them and the many other public servants putting in overtime on our behalf a debt of genuine gratitude. Some of our local government partners are starting to open warming centers, so check your local government management agency's website to see what options are available near you. At this time, because of expected snow accumulation, cold temperatures, and wind gusts, our greatest concern is unsafe travel. So please take a second look at your weekend plans Stay home and off the roads during winter weather. And if you live in coastal North Carolina, be alert for flooding that the strong winds will likely bring. Do not drive through flood waters. For the most up-to-date roadway information, visit drivenc.gov. And no matter where you live, make sure you're tuned in to your local media, the National Weather Service, and your local emergency management agency for the latest updates and recommendations. Today is the day to get prepared. Make sure you've got non-perishable food, plenty of water, and batteries and other supplies in case you get stuck at home or lose power. And please check on your neighbors who may be vulnerable. Let's stick together, keep each other safe, and hope for a fun snow day here in North Carolina, something that we don't get all that often. Thank you, and I'm now going to bring forward Director Ray and then Secretary Johnson.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everyone. A significant weather storm is forecast to begin this afternoon across the mountains, expanding east throughout the evening and overnight periods. Widespread snowfall is forecast with this event, and locally significant snowfall amounts are expected. In addition to snowfall, dangerously cold temperatures and strong wind gusts are forecast through the weekend. These strong wind gusts will bring below-zero wind chills across the state and the possibility of coastal flooding. Cold temperatures will linger into early next week, prolonging snowfall impacts. A winter storm warning will go into effect statewide late this afternoon across the mountains and Piedmont, and overnight Friday into Saturday across the coastal plain. Widespread snowfall amounts between 3 to 8 inches are forecast across the state, especially across the coastal plain where the greatest snowfall amounts are most likely. Significant snowfall amounts of 8 to 12 inches are likely across portions of the state, but are dependent on where the heaviest snowfall bands develop. A cold weather advisory will go into effect overnight Friday through overnight Saturday across the eastern half of the state, where near zero wind chills are forecast. An extreme cold watch will go into effect for portions of the mountains from Saturday afternoon until Sunday afternoon, in the Piedmont from Saturday evening through Sunday morning, and in the coastal plain from late Saturday night through Monday morning. Wind chills are forecast to be as low as 22 degrees below zero across the mountains, 5 to 10 degrees below zero for the Piedmont, and 5 degrees below zero for the coastal plain. A high wind warning and wind advisory will be in effect Saturday afternoon and evening across much of the coast. Wind gusts within the high wind warning area are forecast to be up to 55 to 70 miles per hour, and wind gusts within the wind advisory area are forecast to be up to 45 miles per hour. All North Carolinians should be finalizing plans now and should be prepared to stay home and off the roadways starting tonight through early next week. If you need information to assist in your preparation, please visit readync.gov. The State Emergency Response Team, including all interagency partners, private sector, nonprofit, and volunteer agencies, remain activated. There are 4 local states of emergencies and 21 local emergency operations centers activated or in monitoring status. We continue to support commodity distribution, and as of this morning, the State Emergency Response Team has distributed approximately 550 blankets to assist communities with shelter and warming center operations should they be required. This is in addition to the approximately 1,700 cots and blankets and 127 pallets of meals ready to eat, or MREs, and drinking water that were shipped last weekend to supplement local supply. Many communities across the state are opening or staging for shelter locations or warming stations. For the most up-to-date information on those resources available in your community, please visit your local government and local emergency management agency's website and social media accounts. The North Carolina National Guard, the entirety of the North Carolina State Highway Patrol, the North Carolina Forest Service, and the Office of Emergency Medical Services, among others, are all active and moving on to station today across the state to assist local communities and state partners with clearing roadways, responding to emergencies, and with transportation needs. 73 North Carolina National Guard force packages will be on station by tonight and will be assisting with clearing roadways from downed trees, helping disabled motorists, supplementing first responders, and assisting with commodity distribution. These force packages include approximately 341 soldiers and 131 vehicles. While this is not forecast to be an ice event like last weekend, posing a widespread threat to our utility partners, We remain in close coordination with our energy sector organizations who are represented here at the State Emergency Operations Center, and will be closely monitoring power outage information to quickly assist in restoring power in communities that do see outages. Communications personnel and equipment have been pre-deployed to assist with any degradation of 911 systems, radio systems, and phone systems. And as a reminder, 911 should be used for emergencies only. For general information, please call 211 or follow your local government and emergency management websites and social media accounts. Finally, as I continue to say, please check on your friends, your family members, your neighbors, or those in your community who may need additional support this weekend. We are going to see significant winter storm impacts this weekend, and we are stronger and more resilient together. Thank you, Governor, and I'll now turn it over to Secretary Johnson from NCDOT.
Thank you, Governor and Director Ray. NCDOT crews have been operating in overdrive since we started preparing for last week's storm, and we're not letting our foot off the gas. Though we are still clearing areas of the state that have experienced particularly cold temperatures and hardened ice on the roads since last weekend's storm, our resources we've largely shifted our resources to preparing for the ice storm approaching, the snowstorm approaching this weekend. We're closely watching this storm. The latest forecast shows that this storm will have statewide impacts on the transportation system and carries the potential for severe impacts on a significant portion of that system. As we did last week, we're encouraging people to stay off the roads as much as possible the next few days. We appreciate everyone's cooperation in limiting travel over the past week. Because North Carolinians heeded the warnings last weekend, we had 0 traffic fatalities related to the storm, and for that, we were very grateful. By staying off the roads, you help keep yourself and your family safe and give our crews the space they need to do their important work. Speaking of that work, I want to take a moment to recognize the thousands of DOT employees and contractors who have put in a major effort over the last 10 days. I'm thankful for all their work and for all the work they'll do over the next several days to help us recover. Over the past 36 hours or so, these crews have put out an additional 1.4 million gallons of brine to pre-treat our roads, which will help keep more ice from forming on the pavement. Once it's safe to do so, our crews will be running plows to remove snow from the roads and to spread sand and salt to help with traction. Rest assured, we'll be working hard to clear the roads as quickly as possible. We ask for your patience as we work through the recovery, especially with more cold temperatures to come in the days ahead. As I mentioned, this storm will impact the entire state, but one area we're watching particularly closely is the Outer Banks and other areas along the coast. As Director Ray and the Governor have shared, in addition to the snow, this storm brings the potential for high winds across the state, and in particular along the coast. One thing we're watching closely is the potential for overwash, particularly in the Outer Banks. This could present dangerous and potentially impassable conditions for driving along the coast. Our crews are ready to respond and will restore the roadway as quickly as possible. And as we did last week, we're working with the State Highway Patrol to remove disabled vehicles from the roadway. This helps keep the roads and shoulders safe for our crews and others involved in emergency response in the days ahead. We'll continue working with our partners, the Highway Patrol and the National Guard, throughout the storm. Please stay informed and, if possible, stay put throughout the duration of this storm until it's deemed safe to travel. People can visit drivenc.gov to view the latest road conditions and other storm-related information. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to the Governor for any questions.
Secretary, thank you so much. If there are any questions in the room, please go to the microphones on either side, and then we will go to questions online afterward.
Hey, Adam Wagner from WNC. One of the concerns with overwash, obviously some of the houses on the Outer Banks that are sort of teetering right now. I know that folks in Buxton, maybe Rodanthe, have been asking you for a localized state of emergency for a little while. Mm-hmm. Could this necessitate that, and sort of how could this weather make cleaning up those houses more difficult if they fall in?
Yeah, the statewide emergency applies to the entirety of the state, including the Outer Banks and Buxton. Unfortunately, the declaration doesn't trigger any special assistance that's really relevant to them. What it does is enable us to move resources to help respond to emergencies. There is legislation in Congress sponsored by Congressman Murphy, which both Commissioner of Insurance Mike Causey and I have supported and have written to Congress in that support, which would enable the flood program, the National Flood Insurance Program, to actually buy out homes before they tumble into the ocean. Then it creates an environmental mess, much smarter for us to try to remove those homes that are at risk of falling into the ocean before it does so.
And then yesterday, you heard from workers who worked last week 99 hours, 101 hours. Do you have any estimates on the total cost of last week's storm to the state? Any kind of predictions for what this one could cost?
I don't have a total cost. I don't know, Will, if you do. I think it's too early at this point. Clearly, DOT has experienced a great deal of overtime. State Highway Patrol has incurred a great deal of overtime. The National Guard incurs expenses every time it gets deployed. And so, yes, there are real costs to the state. We have an emergency fund that the General Assembly appropriates money into that we can draw down for these kinds of operations, but there is a cost, and as it becomes clear, we're happy to share it with you.
Hi, Governor. Christine Zhu with NC Newsline. What preparations are being made in regards to the power grid and any potential outages?
We are in constant contact with our energy partners, whether that's Duke Energy, the electric co-ops, the electricities, and they're here. We know where their greatest worries are. Fortunately, with this storm, that is less of a concern than last week, because last week's was an ice storm. This is a snowstorm. Ice is much heavier than snow, so it's more likely to create limb breakages or trees toppling over. It's more likely to weight the lines and break those. So with snow, we don't think there will be as many power outages. And fortunately, we didn't experience too many last year. I think the peak was maybe 25,000 loss of power at any one time. So that's not to say that there will not be power outages. If the snowfall comes in at the high end and communities experience 15 inches of snow, that's a lot of weight, and that will knock over trees, and that will knock over power lines. It's just they call this a banded storm, where the snow is going to come in bands. It's not going to be uniform across an entire county. You may have one town in the county that has 12, 15 inches if it's heavy, and another may have 6 or 7 or 8. And so it will be localized. I know that our utility partners are ready to go.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take questions online if there are any. Please identify yourself before you ask a question.
Raise your hand function and they'll see you.
Felicia Somez, please ask your question.
Hi, well, thank you so much again for taking our questions. Just wondering for listeners out here in the West, if there's anything in particular that folks should be aware of, or any particular precautions that they should take ahead of this storm. Thank you so much.
Yes, the snow intensity, it's going to be significant, but not as much as the Far East, which is a little bit upside down from what we're used to. Where we will see real issues in Far West is temperatures. The temperature is going to be bitterly cold. Wind chill, maybe minus 20 degrees. Obviously, the risks of frostbite and hypothermia become very elevated when you have temperatures that low. So folks just need to not be outside if they possibly can. And if they are outside, make sure that you are well dressed, wearing lots of leathers and covering all exposed skin. If you have to drive and there is snow, make sure that you have a safety package in the car with you, because if you run off the road in temperatures like that, it can be very dangerous.
Once again, I'm John Evans in the WECT Digital Studio. You're listening to Governor Josh Stein at a news conference in Raleigh. Actually, that news conference coming to an end in Raleigh, and I'm going to punch Gabe Ross up here in the digital studio along with me. Let me get rid of that.
Yep.
We don't need that anymore. And some of the things we picked up from the governor, Gabe, I don't think anything should be surprising. They activated the emergency response team. We knew that yesterday. Biggest concern right now, unsafe travel, the governor said. Likely Sunday, Monday, maybe even later. Will Ray, the emergency management director, be prepared to stay home into next week. The National Guard Highway Patrol activated to help with clearing any roads. Secretary Johnson of the DOT encouraging people to stay off the roads, which we've been preaching.
Yeah.
They've put down almost 1.5 million gallons of brine to pre-treat the roads, and he made specific took time to mention specifically the areas along the coast, the high winds and the potential for overwash. He mentioned the Outer Banks, but we've even talked about this, and you have mentioned it as well, about the possibility along our coastal communities that, you know, some of the winds we're getting, the possibility for overwash is pretty high.
Sure, yeah, a little minor beach erosion's possible. I think there are bigger concerns out in the Outer Banks given its proximity to the low and given how much farther out in the ocean that it actually sticks. But those concerns could be reflected here in southeastern North Carolina as well. Yeah, no big surprise in anything that I've heard the governor talk about or any of the emergency managers or the DOT officials say in all this. Realistically, this will come down to how much we wind up getting, how crews are able to work. They gave some, you know, tips, best practices in there as well. So it really is going to be just a lot of hurry up and wait. We've done all the preparing we really can. If you haven't yet, this is a good day in order to do so. Maybe you're like me and not that the cupboard's bare, but you know, you might want to stock up on just a couple of things. Not a bad idea to run in the store. You don't need to panic buy, of course.
Right, yeah.
But maybe just, you know, pick up a couple of things this weekend if you're going to stay home. But yeah, nothing that I'm hearing is any real surprise. It's just kind of, you know, preparation for what could be a wintry, well, what is going to be likely a wintry event here in southeastern North Carolina, increasing confidence in that.
Yep. Okay. Again, I'm going to let Gabe get to his graphics here, but we do know Columbus County government offices are closed on Monday. We do know Southeastern Community College is closed tomorrow and Sunday. The first two of what we expect to be a lot of announcements coming up. We'll have those on our website. But as long as we were here and as long as I knew those, I wanted to pass those along. You wanted max 1 or max 2?
2.
Max
please.
2.
Yep.
All right. There we
My
go.
colleague meteorologist Ella Tanzi is getting ready for the midday broadcast.
Okay,
So
there you go.
I will drive the other system here, and let's talk a little bit about you know, this forecast. And let's be honest, not a lot has changed from yesterday to tonight. I know we're gonna have a lot of questions here on the Facebook feed. What about my backyard? What about, you know, this city, this tiny area that I live in, or this big metropolitan that I live in? I'll tell you now, this forecast is going to be widespread throughout southeastern North Carolina. So everything that we're talking about, you could equally disperse this across all of the lower Cape Fear. That will include some of the peripheral counties, so folks that are listening from Duplin and Onslow County that I've had reach out to me as well in all of this. You know, this is going to include you as well. You'll see some of the modeling too as well. So just hang with us, and we'll get through this forecast. But really new this morning and really into this afternoon, models have fluctuated with some of the regional snow totals. That's not a big surprise. That has been a trend we have seen for days and days. Probably the biggest thing while you were sleeping is the winter storm watch got upgraded to a winter storm warning across the Cape Fear, and you heard mention of that in the press conference. Does that change what is what's going on? No, because we're focused on impacts and not specific labels. So we're still looking at record cold. We're still looking at inches of snow. We're still looking at hazardous or dangerous travel, marine and coastal impacts. All of that's still in play. Nothing that I've seen modeling-wise indicates, hey, you know what? This isn't going to happen. It'll just be to whatever extent. And the reality is we're not going to know a whole lot until we get into the daytime Saturday. With these winter systems, especially how rare they are down here, sometimes it's a lot of hurry up and wait. So winter storm warning, you see how widespread that is across the Carolinas? That was an uptick from that winter storm watch. In addition, one of the things that went out was a cold weather advisory. Notice letter of the law does not include coastal Onslow County, coastal Pender, New Hanover, Brunswick counties, coastal Horry County, because it's a fine criteria, apparent or wind chill values of 15 degrees or lower. Inland spots going to be the most susceptible to that. That's going to go into effect later tonight, like Saturday morning, 1 a.m. All of that will kind of kick in. Then we get into extreme cold territory. That comes Saturday night. So that is still in play. That has not been upgraded yet. I would expect if it is, it's going to happen a little later on today, possibly at the latest first thing in the morning. But all of that verbiage, all of those concerns with the dangerous wind chills down below 5, in some cases wind chill values below 0, even here in the Cape Fear, all going to be stuff that we watch for, so no big deviations from that. And really, as far as the general timeline of everything, not seeing a whole lot of shifts there. One change I did make this morning, just with some of the earlier model runs, the potential for at least some flurries during the course of the late overnight. So we may be talking a few hours ahead of sunrise Saturday. So that's why that's listed now as possible. Still, the primary mode of precipitation here is going to be snow. And we'll have to watch and see, of course, how that warm air boundary right along the coast plays out. But models had been pretty consistent, at least this morning, and even a little bit last night in that cold air intrusion kind of sinking farther south. So this wraps up probably first thing in the morning Sunday. So as far as the snow is concerned, that's really a 24-hour window that we're looking at, but it'll be what falls that dictates the severity of those impacts. We know that the cold's going to be here during this event. We know the cold's going to be here after the event. So no big thinking, no big change in that thinking. One thing we want to consider also with impacts or other things that we may have just mentioned in passing or things you might, cursory think about, but we want to reemphasize things like steps, sidewalks, walkways are all going to be slick. So if you're heading out, maybe you're going to go build a snowman. Maybe you're going to just, travel along for a little bit and see how conditions are in your area. First off, limit that time outside because of the bitter cold that we're dealing with. That's a very important takeaway as you're traveling by foot, however you're going to do it. Be mindful of your health too. You know how in the summer, sometimes when we get those, extreme heat warnings or that kind of thing, it's hard for those with sensitive respiratory systems to be outside. This is kind of the opposite end of that. It can be tough for those with trouble breathing to function in the cold for that long. So limit that time outside. In addition, that will prevent things like frostbite, hypothermia, making sure that you are dressed in not just layers, multiple layers, thick layers at that. Even though it may be fun to play out in the snow, you want to take those frequent breaks where you can. Bringing your car off the street, if at all possible. We heard DOT crews mention that, hey, like abandoned cars and stuff that are on the side of the roads, that crews are going to be, towing those away. If you can, I realize not all locations are able to do that, but where you can, pull your car off of the street. That will help crews in abating the snow that does fall. Pull those windshield wipers up. And if your road's clear and you are traveling, clear off your car. How many times have you seen, and you and I know this from living up north, how many times have you seen people with snow still on the hood of their car and it just blows back and it makes it difficult for you to drive, or God forbid you get a chunk of ice that's on top of your windshield, it flies off, it cracks your windshield. It has that potential with some of those highway speeds. So vehicle's important. A lot of people are looking for snow shovels down here, and they're going to be hard-pressed to find it.
I looked for one, couldn't find it. All things confessed here, Sheila got one on Amazon, had it sent to the house and arrived yesterday.
That is, you are lucky to have been thinking ahead on that, sir. But you know what? If you don't have it, you have other options. If you have a spade shovel or some other flat, front shovel, that will work just as well. Just be careful if what surface you're on. You don't, if you're a new homeowner, like you're a lot of new developments going up, you don't want to damage the concrete. Even things like salt, like just pure table salt. I know folks who have just used pure table salt to melt their driveway. The problem is when we have these cold temperatures that can get in to those porous surfaces and cause cracking. So you could have some additional damage there. So things like a stiff bristle broom in this kind of snow might actually be helpful. However, with the wind the way it is, you have that risk of blowing and drifting snow a little bit in that too. But these are all good takeaways here, especially for those who don't have the means and the things that others maybe who lived up north to have down here. And who knows, maybe folks from the north originally have decided, I don't need a shovel down here. Yeah,
I didn't for the longest time.
I know.
I didn't either.
I think a lot of folks may be going to Amazon or some other store when conditions warm up just to have that in case the next system comes around. All right, so I've got future radar modeling here. And of course, we take this as guidance rather than gospel, and for good reason, because the models too have been all over the place. There are some similarities though that we're noticing, specifically the arrival time, the departure time, that kind of thing, the type of precipitation, where some of the primary impacts are. But you'll notice the rest of the afternoon and evening, we fare pretty dry. But if you live along the coast, you might see a little bit of that flurry action, maybe a little mix still right along the coast first thing in the morning. And this latest run also kind of emphasizes that dry slotting we've been talking about, which for Saturday, folks, will make or break some of these snowfall tallies. We got two competing low pressure systems, one in the upper levels, a smaller one, a meso low offshore that we've been talking about that's going to develop at bomb cyclone, if you will, and they're competing for moisture. So what happens, we see the snow eventually fill in, but notice how this latest model run really keeps that dry slotting in place, right? Yeah. And that would be great. That would certainly negate our impacts. I'm not sold on it because the models have been everywhere, so the mindset still needs to be prepare for inches of snow, because again, models will change no matter what you look at. Global models, high res, they're going to shift. This is still out of here though come early Sunday, so some of you may be waking up to a winter wonderland, first thing in the morning, and your roads are going to be covered and have those issues to deal with. That's still very much in play here. We've had a lot of folks ask about benchmarks for snow. These are just some of them here in recent years. Of course, last year we had a little over 2.5 inches of snow in the port city. The last 3-inch plus event was 2018. I remember that vividly because I was not feeling well and still had to go out in the cold. That aside, the last 5-inch amount, you go back to 2000. If you watched Carolina in the Morning this morning, we showed some video there and the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge and what travel was like over that. It was rough. And the last 6-inch plus event, you got to go back to the snowstorm of 89. It was well above that, mind you. But we're looking for the last time we went over that threshold, and that was as recently as 1989. So how much snow? Again, the $1 million question that we're going to be asked. It is still very difficult to determine that even here some 24 plus hours out. We can give you odds of what we think is a reasonable amount region-wide. And mind you, with snow bands, dry slotting, other factors, these tallies could be inflated, deflated, depending on where you live. So still a chance for a coating in spots. Yes, that's a lower percentage chance of areas around here getting just a coating. Possible, but still the lowest chance. I think the most probable outcome here is that we walk away with inches of snow, anywhere from that 2-inch range up to about 5 or even 6. And yes, notice the second highest chance of what we get is that 6-inch or historical value. So odds are we're walking away with inches of snow as opposed to just a coating or, flurries or nothing. Right. Those odds really are trending low here as we're closer to this event. We've continued to see the modeling just kind of hone in on these particular impacts here overall. Wind. Right. Is another end of this, right? The governor talked about wind. We talked about issues along the beach. And these wind speeds are pretty impressive. So think of this not only from coastal, issues, but think of this from a wind chill value standpoint, right? This is something we would talk a lot about if we were in a tropical system, but this is similar. We have a low offshore. We've got a bomb cyclone that is forming here. And so 20, 25 plus mile per hour sustained winds here. A distinct possibility even by lunchtime tomorrow, so that's just going to make the air bite that much more. And the wind speeds only go higher from here. Now we start getting into the 30, 35, 40 plus. If we were in the summer, this is tropical storm force kind of wind here in winter, mind you. So now consider the time frame. Sunday morning, typically our coldest time of the day. That's why there's such high confidence in those wind chill values being down well in the single digits, if not below 0 in spots. And this is going to take a little bit to abate. So even through Sunday night, wind chill values are going to dip back down into the single digits. We do get some warming as we head through the middle of the week, which will be very helpful, of course. Even air temps likely to be on the warmer side, but it's going to be cold. You're still going to want to limit that time outside no matter what. So your key takeaways, these also really haven't changed, but important notes. The cold is a sure bet. The daytime Saturday with any dry slotting, etc., will make or break those snowfall tallies. And whatever falls, even if it is just a coating or a couple of inches, think about where we are. We're in southeastern North Carolina. We're not in the Northeast. We're not in the Midwest. We're not in a place that could just, readily send out, whatever our fleet is, and it's taken care of in a few hours.
Yeah.
So it is going to take some time, and that's why travel is trending on the hazardous side still in all of this.
And I want to punch this up again. This was last year.
Yeah.
2.5 inches at ILM. Some areas got a little bit more, 3-4 inches.
Yep.
It stuck around because the temperatures for several days stayed cold. We're going to have cold temperatures here on Sunday, a little warmer Monday. But remember what this was like last year for those of you who were here, how not much happened here for a couple of days after that snowstorm. Not saying that this is going to be similar, but just remember back, like you said, the infrastructure here can't handle it like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, some of those other places. So it's going to be different here than it was maybe where you were before. So the point is, it's going to impact us. Like you said, some of those impacts, dangerous travel, likely Saturday night and beyond. Just think back to 372 days or whatever it was last year, what that storm did to this entire area.
Exactly. Now imagine we get those higher amounts. That forecast really verifies. We get a band that just dumps and dumps. Remember PTC 8, how we had kind of just a direct funnel of moisture with a non-tropical, just dump that much rain. Now, remember that 10-to-1 ratio we talked about yesterday? 1 inch of rain equates to, in this case, mostly about 10 inches of snow. Yeah. That'd be mind-blowing in this case. But just a couple tenths of an inch of rain means a couple inches of difference in what ultimately falls. And with such wide variations on the models, that's why it's so difficult to pinpoint exactly what communities are going to see the highest amount, exactly what areas get the lowest amounts. It's a very, very difficult science. And even with all the meteorological training in the world, like you're going to have some best guesses, mind you, but even then, it's still your best educated guess based on the information available.
The governor called it a bandit storm. I hadn't heard that term yet. That's a new one on me because of the bands. And just think, when we get rainstorms in the summertime and thunderstorms and the bands of rain that come through, you might see that in Masonboro. We don't see it on Shipyard. You might see that in Leland. You don't see it in Belleville. You might see it in Whiteville. You don't see it in Chadbourne.
Yep.
That could be the difference in what snow falls in your community and then 3 or 4 miles down the road. Just remember that we're all going to get snow at this point in time, and it's all going to impact us the same way. Okay. Let's get back to the
right
graphics.
you are.
I interrupted. I apologize.
You are totally fine, sir. We appreciate that perspective. The next graphic I have is that extended forecast, which notice features temps below freezing on Sunday. Here's something else to consider. Whatever falls will have an impact on temperature too. Think of it like an ice pack that sits out in a cooler, right? What does it do? It cools the ambient air. So in some cases, if we get more snow, that's going to impact just how warm temperatures can get on the surface. We'll have some melting during the day. But another thing that I'd be remiss to mention when we talked about the snow from last year, what did we have? We had thawing and we had a refreeze at night. So even if we do melt a little bit, we're going to have those refreeze concerns on the road. And so that's why those impacts. Listen, you if you're like me, you've tried to get from Brunswick County to New Hanover County on a nice day with traffic. Can you imagine that if the roads are an absolute mess? And I have to keep myself from swearing in that case. Because you get frustrated sitting in that kind of traffic. Sure. So now imagine we put winter weather in on top of that. And that's why we have first alert weather days that continue out through Groundhog Day and even Tuesday. I am heartened to see temps trending toward the 50s for Wednesday and even an overnight low that's above freezing. That'll be good for snow melt. But we'll have to see. The snowpack is going to play a part in that as well. So the forecast story, as it always is, it's like an evolving story. You don't want to call it a soap opera per se, but there are always little changes. I love to equate it to pro wrestling. Sometimes you have to change things out here on the fly with this kind of thing. But it's an evolving forecast. So you can't look at it on a Monday or Tuesday and say, we're going to get 10 inches of snow. Right. And then that's, what your take is. No. That's why you have to check in with the forecast daily, whether it's the WECT News app. My personal favorite, join us on TV. I know that's an old school way of thinking,
really.
but you get out of your head not having to worry about, the social armchair meteorologists online who are just going to grab model snapshots and not give you a whole lot of perspective. They'll give you a broad perspective, sure.
Right.
They won't give you what you need close to home. That's where we come in. So that's why you have to check in with the forecast on a regular basis, because those updates are going to come. We have new modeling information that comes in. And in some cases you've seen before where it can make or break some of those impacts.
Right. And again, WECT weather app on your smart device, whether it's a phone or an iPad or anything, that they send out video messages, more of them during events like this, but they update the forecast. You can see the radar, you can see the models, all of it right there on the weather app. Free. Put notifications on so that when Gabe and Ella and Gannon and Eric send out notifications, you can get them and have them right on your front screen. Again, Columbus County government offices closed Monday and Tuesday. Southeastern Community College closed Saturday and Sunday. We'll have more of those announcements as they come in. We'll put those on our website and our news app. Go ahead. You want to?
Yeah, I'd also be remiss not to say, as we're doing this, we still have fun. It is snow, right?
Yeah.
One thing I told our reporters in our morning editorial meeting is if you have a ruler, yardstick, even depending on how much snow you get, we would love to see your snow totals. One thing we want to do is keep our crews safe. So we've got our coverage plan all laid out and ready to go. But we want to see totals in your backyard. We might not have somebody in your community, and we want to know what those snow reports are. One, so that way we could share it with the rest of southeastern North Carolina. Two, entities like the National Weather Service that will likely do studies on this would love those snowfall reports too. It helps paint a complete picture, if you will, and actually helps in the future of forecasting storms like this. So the best way to do it: see it, snap it, send it.
Right.
And, we'll show it here on TV. You can also throw it up on social media and send it to the National Weather Service. But, we're all about helping each other out, sharing information. But that's a great way to help us out. Plus, you might, build a snowman, put a ruler next to it. You might just see that on TV. It's kind of
cool. WECT hat on top of the snowman, you're good. If you don't have a ruler, take something that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Take a pen.
Yep.
Take a pen cap out. Put the pen in there. If that's, wow, they got a pen top worth of snow. It's not inches, it's not specific measurements, but okay, I can relate to a pen top full of snow. I can relate to a soda can. Put a soda can in there. I can relate to how much snow that is. Again, do it safely.
I can't wait to see what kind of units of measurement we get in that case.
Get a spatula full of snow.
A spatula of snow. I've never heard that metric before.
There you go. But anyway, be safe, whatever you do. We're going to be back. We have a New Hanover County Emergency Management briefing at 2 this afternoon. Likely be back in here about 4:30 with new information from our First Alert Weather team. For Gabe Ross, I'm John Evans. We appreciate you joining us. Please stay safe. Please stay weather aware. Stay with us on WECT.com and our newscast coming up in 17 minutes with our midday news. Thanks for joining us, everybody.